Hello and good day. Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We're here because we're on a mission to inspire other people to get outside and enjoy camping adventures such as we have as a family. Today's guest is a very outdoorsy guy. He paddles, rides, bikes, hikes, and loves camping. Judging from his YouTube channel, he's a big fan of mountain biking and trail riding. He's also hiked some pretty amazing places, hung out with Canoe Hound at his bushcraft camp, likes playing bass in jazz jams, and getting out in a canoe. If you see someone walking around the outdoor adventure show slapping news stickers on a food barrel he's carrying around, that's probably this guy. Please welcome Deren from Ride, Paddle, Repeat. Yay! Welcome!
Great introduction. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
That's Tim's work.
This year's been I haven't been doing them just cause, and largely because Pamela has known most of the guests we've done this year.
They're repeat.
Yeah, revisits, I guess. Yeah, so I cobbled together some stuff that usually somebody else's. I'm totally plagiarizing other people's work, so it's easy to do.
Don't admit that.
Shh, okay,
Well,
sorry,
thank
bad.
you.
The lawyers, they're going to be...
Very cool.
So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks very much. Relatively nice day outside, even though it's getting colder. So, already been out walking and walked the dog, and we have a nice park right here in downtown Kitchener, Victoria Park. So that's my morning routine. So feeling pretty good. Thanks. How are you guys?
What kind of dog do you have?
We have a 14-pound Shih Tzu poodle mix. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a cockapoo, so he's a poodle cross as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely dogs.
Yeah.
Not great for the portages, but everything else, we have a smallish place, so it's perfect for him, and he definitely runs the town here. So
He goes backcountry camping with you?
no, he's too much of a prince. That's our fault. So yeah,
Ours is
He
a
doesn't
bit of a
like
diva
being
too.
not comfortable. So yeah.
Yeah, Farley's only been on one backcountry trip with us, and that was just one at Massasauga. I don't know, how long ago was that? Month? 6 weeks?
Beginning of October, yeah, about a month ago.
Yes, Diva. He doesn't even want to go front country camping. He just lays there.
We likes to hang out in the car when we're front country
Yeah.
camping, and we thought the tent was going to be the car for backcountry camping, but he actually got out and hung out.
Wandered around a bit. Yeah, it was good. So, in particular, I want to talk about. You just did a trip to the Yukon. Not just did, but you did a recent huge trip. Tell me about it. It was like 20 days, 22 days, something like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was 22 days on the water. It started right at the end of June, so we pretty much got in on Canada Day or just before, I don't recall. So that was really cool to spend. Actually, our second night was on Canada Day there. We took the ground shuttle to Mayo, and if you've seen Jim Baird's video series or the full video for the Hart River, essentially we basically carbon copied it, except we did it in as you heard, like a much longer time frame because we wanted to spend more time in different areas. But the route is essentially the same. So we got the float plane in Mayo, flew us into Elliott Lake, spent our first night on Elliott Lake, which as soon as you get in there, it's like absolutely stunning. You feel like you're in a different world. And I know it's cliche, but like those photos and videos, it doesn't do justice to the mountain ranges, and just like it looks like the age of things is just older, but in a grandeur kind of beautiful way, not anything negative, and you just feel smaller. Again, like I think it's humbling in a beneficial way. And as soon as we got in, of course, it started raining, and that seemed to be the theme for the first 7 days. Is like you'd be on the water and stuff, and it'd be fine, maybe overcast. As soon as you land and you want to make camp, it's gonna start raining. That's the way it went. So that was fine. We waited it out. We found a nice spot on Elliott Lake, actually, not where we intended to camp. Yeah, it was pretty overgrown, I guess. But across the way, it looked like there was like a horse camp or something like that. That had a couple log structures there. So we actually made camp there. It was a really nice place to start our camp, start the trip. And the other reason it was nice is because we also had a nested canoe, so we had free boats. one boat was a 16-foot nested inside a 17, so we actually had to disassemble the 17-footer, take out the seats and stuff like that, and nest the 16-foot inside, which means they could strap it to the float plane on one pontoon and then strap the other boat, so 3 in total, 2 in one and then 1 on the other pontoon, fly us all in, 6 people total, 3 boats, and then we had to reassemble the 16-footer with some like mediocre-ish tools, but so that was fun. It was a good. So having that like the horse camp and having that shelter and having that nice like actual flat spot to do the work and make our first dinner and get ourselves acquainted, and yeah, it was nice. It was a great start to a trip. And then the next day immediately we got up and headed from Elliott Lake into Elliott Creek. And if you saw Jim Baird's video, it was low water for him, so that's why we went early as we could, because we were worried about the low water situation. I think it took him 4 days and a lot of dragging. Took us 2 days, relatively smooth. We didn't have to drag really anything. There was just like enough water, just enough for us to float through, which was great. And even a couple of swifts, which was really good to get our, like adrenaline flowing a little bit, because one of the things about this trip that I was I would say apprehensive, not worried, but apprehensive about was the level of whitewater. I'm a relative novice. Did a couple of trips and a course with Paul Mason, which really helped, I guess, at Palmer Rapids to kind of get upskilled on that, and with the same paddle partner that I was going to have. So like pretty much all of us went up a couple times to Palmer to do some of the training, and then the lower Mad as like training. Most people there had more experience than I did in whitewater who were on the trip. The trip was led by a gentleman named Paul Hoy, who's a person I've tripped with before. He's on the Facebook groups for pretty much all of them. And
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen that name before.
yeah, he's got a ton of experience. He's actually been to the Yukon a couple times before. Also the Hart River. He's done all the Nahani. He's done them pretty much a lot. And so with him, we were able to self-guide the experience, which really saved a lot of money, because if you have to do a guide on this, I actually don't know if they guide the Hart River. They might, but it would still be a lot more money. So we had Paul as like our de facto guide. I did a great trip with him in Temagami, a fly-in trip before, another trip in Temagami, so we have good history. I like him as a paddle partner and as a trip leader. He's also a really great poet, which is really cool. So I'm hoping to have him on my podcast, Scene to Scenic, and have him share some of his poetry. It's really neat. So with Paul, he was in the boat with his other friend Tim. And then
Not this
so that
one.
worked out. And then we had another couple of friends join us, Chris and Michaela, who both had pretty good whitewater experience. And then my paddle partner, her name was Kathy, and she's close to 60, I think, but like a boss, like really strong. Had some experience in rivers before too. So, and our communication was increasingly getting better as time moved on. So it's feeling pretty good. But still, the whitewater was, it could be challenging, but overall, it worked out as a trip like really well. It was also great because the progression of whitewater like started low and went higher as the river moved down. So by the time we got to the Peel, which is where the trip would end, that's where like that class 4 rapid was. And I actually lined the top of it with Tim, and the other 2 boats, they actually shot it, which was good, and they both made it. It was fine. And I ran the bottom of it, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, overall, like 22 days gave us a lot of time to be able to stop and see some sights, and we took a couple of rest days, of course, on different places, wanted to do some hiking. So yeah, I'm happy to talk more about any of the different aspects of it, but just wanted to give you a review.
I mean, yeah, you've seen it happen faster by others, and I always think like, I went all the way up there. I want to hang out and check some of this stuff out, man. So yeah, it's from what I've seen of your pictures and whatnot, and the little blurbs that you put in, like especially on your Instagram. I think I would be way more inclined to do it the way you guys did it. Just all that majesty, just all that beauty.
Take it all in.
Yeah, yeah. because it's not like you do that a lot, right? Like it's not a every year sort of trip or anything like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would say it would be for me a bucket list trip. Like I had turned 40 that year. That was going to be like my big 40-year, trip. And thankfully, my wife was very supportive of that too, because she doesn't love moving water, but she let me go up there. And it was like I found it was the right amount of time. I actually was getting, I think, a little homesick by like day 14, thinking like, oh, I don't know, can we do another week of this, whatever. But it was the right call. Being out there, and that just happens for me because it was the longest trip I've ever done, longest I've been away from home. But every day was something new, and I would even say there was a little bit of magic in each of those days. So Elliott Creek was really cool, and then the topography changed a lot once we got into the Hart River proper, and the color of the water too was incredible once we got to the Hart. But the first camp we had in Elliott Creek, which was, I said, it was on Canada Day, was a really cool spot, nice little gravel bar. We were able to get a fire, I think, for the first time too, which helped dry it out enough. So for that, we had a firebox stove, so we were feeling great about that. And like I said, we were just all kind of getting used to each other and used to the group dynamic because we haven't camped as a group. You know what I mean? I've camped with Paul before. Chris has camped with Michaela before. No one's met Kathy that I was, like that I knew about. So the group dynamic was cool to see that evolve and also like grow and work really well because, like that could be a potential problem, I think, if you don't have a good dynamic. And then when we got to the Hart River proper, the watercolor changed to this like turquoise, like absolutely gorgeous color. Yeah. And then the mountain ranges got even bigger because you could see them far away. And then when you got to them, you're like, oh, wow, these are incredible. And our first night on the Hart River, we camped on kind of like a sand-ish bar, and a huge thunderstorm rolled in, which was actually really cool to be in your tent and see and hear it and just the power of it. Like you realize, like I said, you felt small because you realize the power of nature when you're out there. And when that thunder hit, like it was shaking like your tent. Like it was really cool, uh, in that sense. I mean, if I didn't have experience in the backcountry before, I'd probably be terrified. But I was actually just more in awe of it, to be honest with you. And it lasted all of 30 minutes. I don't know. And then we got out and started fishing and stuff. And that was one thing cool that I really appreciated about the trip too is I haven't done a ton of fishing before. I do enjoy it, but catching Arctic grayling is really cool, and they're really good fish and really tasty. So we didn't get into some good ones until later in the trip, but they were like little tiny guys. I guess maybe it was the time of year too or whatever, or if it's the temperature of the water, I don't know. For the most part, so we were thinking, oh, like we watched Jim Baird like just get all these massive grayling, and we thought this was going to be the same thing. But in the first week, we didn't really land anything good, and then started getting a little better as we continued through the trip. There were two kind of highlights. More than two, but of places we stopped to hike, which was really cool. One was day 8, so we had gone through 7 days of the Hart River, stopping on various places, all of which had, like I said, the landscape was really cool. Actually, day 4 and 5 were really neat. That was like the first, like, I guess, amazing landscape moment that just took us really by surprise. Is we were camping at the base of this, again, another gravel. A lot of times we camp with gravel bars, just in where we could find flat spots. And if you see the video, I have one part of the video, and I'm working on part 2 and 3 of the actual video on my YouTube channel for this. But there's a mountain that looks like you're looking at Mordor from like Lord of the Rings. It's just like amazing scree coming down that kind of makes like a deep channel. And it had just finished raining because, of course, we landed and, we were about to make camp. So the rain came. That's just the way it was. But afterwards, this rainbow, most vibrant rainbow I ever see, just like came over in front of the mountain, like the Mordor mountain. And like the photos, it's just like, again, I won't do it justice, but just unreal. And we were able to, Michaela had a drone with her, so she was able to get up and get some drone footage. It's also in the video, which I really appreciate that contribution. And like, it just lifts your spirits. Like, I just don't know how else to describe it. It was incredible. Like, so that view was amazing. That was day 5, just at the base of this mountain. And then around day 8, we stopped at like, it was kind of this time, instead of being on a river right, river left situation, we were camping kind of in the middle where there's a fork. So we camped in the middle, and the river forked around us both ways. And looking both ways, like backwards and forwards, we're in this valley of these big mountains on either side. And it looked kind of like, I've never been to Norway, but to me it looked like as if you were in like Norway with these big fjords almost. You know what I mean? It was incredible that way. And so we base camped there for 2 extra days, and we hiked up one of the mountains on the right side. We just bushwhacked it, kind of. We said, hey, this looks like a great spot to climb. And we did, and we got up there. And once we were up there, the view, again, just changed so much. You can see, like, the braids and then the little offshoots of the river going other places and stuff like that. And for miles, like, just nothing, just pure wilderness. And just, man, we just sat there for an hour just taking it all in. I had mused with one of my guests on the podcast that I had fully intended, I brought a notebook and everything, fully intended, I'm going to write all this great stuff. And I didn't, because I was just taking it in. Like, I couldn't even write. It was just too much for your eyes, for your ears, for your, you know what I mean? Like, that's what was really neat about it. It just captivates you. And I guess captivate's probably the best word I could use to describe it. So that was a wonderful hike. It was a day trip, and then the next day we carried on, and then we got would have been about day 9 or 10, we got to Mount Nitro, which is also where Jim Baird stopped. And again, like in his video, I think he did it in a day or two and just like beast moded it like he always does. But we spent 3 days there at the base of Nitro. That campsite's really cool because for the first time it was like elevated. There were like a few plateaus. So you'd like land your boats. There'd be a plateau up to like the living room, I guess, or area, or whatever. There's a fire pit and stuff, and relatively flat. And then another plateau up to like your sleeping area where it was actually like you had shrubs and grass almost, which is the first time we saw that for a while. So we'd camp at like that premium like penthouse suite like area, have our fires and stuff down at the second portion, and then in the middle, again, it kind of braided out, so you'd have a great place to take cold dips. That was the other thing we did a lot of, is I did a lot of cold plunges, because even though it was the middle of summer, with temperature, that water is still like 3 or 4 degrees or something. So that was a cool experience for me too. But we spent 3 days at Nitro, and we climbed up, not the same, I personally didn't climb up the same side that Jim Baird did, although Chris and Michaela the following day did do that, which they said was extremely sketchy. So good to Jim in terms of like just being able to get up with the vertical and the scree and stuff. We went to the, I guess I'm going to say it's the left side, where there was some rocky outcrops that were really cool that made for an excellent viewing port. And we took some amazing photos, and again, just hung up there for hours, just taking it in. And the view up there on Mount Nitro is just something else, because you're deep into the mountains and the valleys at that point, and you can see how the river ebbs and flows. And the other nice thing too is we were at that point, we were like, okay, it's time to put spray decks on, because we didn't at that point put on the spray decks because we weren't going to hit any white water that we knew of anyways. And that was actually true, because you don't know what's ahead of you, right? So getting that vantage point and being able to see a little bit ahead cued us into, okay, we're probably going to run into some harder rapids. We have a funny story about the spray skirt too. It's also in the video, is that Kathy and I actually lost ours because on day 5, after we left that beautiful campsite where we saw the rainbow and everything, we dumped, and so did Paul. So Paul was leading, we were in the middle, Chris and Michaela sweeping. They're quite experienced, Chris and Michaela in the back, so they were able to avoid this, but went around a corner, and we didn't have anything at this point strapped in or anything like that, because in our own ignorance, and this is something we learned quick, I'm actually very grateful this happened to us early in the trip on day 5, so we would learn from it and, be a bit more diligent. Came around a right-hander, and there's a sweeper going right across, and it from our vantage point, it didn't look like anything really. It was just looked like a twig. When you got around, it took you so fast, and the corner was very tight. So Paul and Tim, who were ahead of us, all but made it. They were so close, but just got the tail end. And then I think They probably could have stabilized themselves, but I think they just opted because they were close to shore to just dump, and they were able to get up really quickly and salvage their stuff. So they didn't swim, and their boat didn't go too far. They were able to retrieve it. Kathy and I, unfortunately, because we were right behind them, it was too late for us to course correct. There's another thing we learned is to give a bit more space. And we were heading straight for this thing, and we quickly realized this was going to be a problem. So we were able to get the boat sideways, at least because we didn't want to like hit it head on, and we just rolled ourselves. Like there's no way we were going to be able to stop it. So that way the boat went under, and Kathy, who was in the bow, in the stern, she went under as well. But I held the boat as much as I could. I said, like, Kathy, like, you got to move. So she did. She went left, and I let the boat go. And that thing's like a torpedo. The river is really quick at this point. And I think it went down 2 kilometers, and we didn't strap anything in. So, of course, all our stuff is, like, gone.
Everywhere.
You know,
Yep.
everywhere, yeah. And so, thankfully, I had a bit of better vantage point. I'm a little taller. So I was able to see Tim on River Right getting up. And so of course at this point I'm also swimming, and now we all took the lesson of Paul Mason. So we, feet up, head back, just feet first going down, and it was fine. We knew eventually there would be something, but rivers up north that way are a little different than like in Ontario, where you'd see a lot of eddy pools, and it's like a 300-meter swim. It's like it goes for a long time. You know what I mean? So thankfully, it was shallow enough where I saw Tim on the side. I'm like, okay, I could stand. And I was able to stand up and walk to shore. Kathy, unfortunately, she made it a little bit further, but she went on the left. So she was across the river from us. Our boat was gone. Our stuff was gone. It was cold. I had a dry top and a dry pants. Soon realized that it's really not adequate because water just gets into that stuff. Like, that's why people have the full dry suit with the whole thing.
The zip up. Yep.
If I would do it differently, yeah, I would definitely invest in a dry suit. Because it was cold. I was not prepared for the level of cold, and I was able to, with Paul and Tim, because they had their boat, they had their stuff, and me and Caffrey were able to get with them while Chris and Michaela chased their boat. Essentially, that was the plan, and they found the boat, which is great, and we were able to kind of make it a little bit further, maybe a kilometer down the river before another sweeper, and Paul and I actually had to like dump ourselves and jump off because we had 4 people on this boat with all this gear, and they couldn't steer at all. So we got off and we made it to shore. Kathy and Tim in the boat made it to shore, which is great. So we were all, for 4 of us, were able to get together with Paul's boat and his stuff, and we stopped and actually made a fire because we were really cold, and that was the right move. So we were getting warm. And we had our Garmin inReaches, and we were trying to communicate with Chris and Michaela to see where they were at. So thankfully, what happened is we all made it, first of all, to River Right, which is good, because if one of us made it over to the left, that'd be a problem. We'd have to cross over again. Our boat was salvaged a little bit further down, maybe 800 meters, but around the corner, we couldn't see them. And they were able to walk up on River Right with us, and Chris came up and met us, which is great, and told us where we were at. So we all were able to walk down. We got the boat and stuff, but we lost some things. Kathy's barrel actually opened. She had a barrel that she rented from the outfitter, and I don't know what happened, but the barrel opened, and she lost a bunch of food, unfortunately, and our coffee rations and stuff like that. So could have been a lot worse, honestly, but
I don't know. Losing your coffee, man, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was like a thing. So I had some other coffee, and some other people had some other coffee, but it wasn't enough. So we were using like second and thirds of grinds and stuff in the morning, and that was like we made do. It was a first world problem, but like it definitely impacted, the morning experience. But all that to say, one of the things that got lost was the spray skirt. So this is actually really a cool story. I mean, not that it happened, but the way we found it. So the skirt was gone. We're like, oh shoot, and that's an expensive piece of kit, and it's not ours. We're renting it along with the boats. Some other stuff was lost. I lost my hat because, like I said, I didn't strap anything down. My water filter. So I lost some stuff. Kathy lost some stuff, but thankfully, all of our dry bags and stuff were there. So we had most of our tents, sleeping bags, all that stuff. We had it. It was fine. And we got back kind of on the horse, and we made a quick camp. But one thing was, we were going a little further down, and the first braid that happened had 3 channels. So river left, center, river right. And we were scouting it out, thinking, which one do we take? They all looked pretty viable. I guess, as fate would have it, because I don't know what else to call it, we took the left channel. We're going down, and it's pretty swift. We see this red thing in the water. We're like, oh, someone busted their canoe up here. So the first boat passes it, but as Kathy and I go by, we're like, that's our spray skirt. So we get to shore, and then we dislodge it, and we have Chris in the middle of a river because he can wade. He's got his dry suit. Everybody else got dry suit. I don't have a dry suit. So we dislodge it. Chris is going, it's like coming by him. He just, it's hard in the water, and it's faster than you think. It just misses, he just misses it, and the skirt's going down again. We're like, okay. But at least this time we know where it is. And it gets lodged, stuck up somehow in the middle of a river on something we don't even know. And actually right to the left of that spot is a great place to camp. So we were able to, and it's like 500 meters. So we were able to get down, go to river left, make camp, and devise a plan where Chris and Michaela and myself were able to actually dislodge and carry the spray skirt. And so we had the spray skirt back. And so that all happened within the first week. And like I said, I'm grateful for that experience because we learned a lot of lessons through that. And I think it really helped the resilience to, one thing is, like I said, we were a lot more cautious around corners. We stopped and scouted a lot more at that point to get around corners and find good lines. We gave more space. We strapped our real stuff in, which we never dumped again, which was great.
Because you had everything strapped in. So where's the fun in dumping?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Also because we didn't want to repeat that experience, but yeah. So all that to say is when we finally got to Mount Nitro, we were able to get the spray skirts and put them on for the next leg of the journey, so to speak, because Nitro's I wouldn't say it's halfway. Yeah, so the next leg of the journey after Mount Nitro, which again was an incredible experience. Again, the topography changed a little bit. The river got a little wider and a little faster, and so we did put the spray skirts on for that leg. All throughout the next leg, there were all these amazing cliffs and spires and cool things happening on the cliffside. So we were taking our time again to check those out while we went down, and then you get into this canyon, and so we had this amazing campsite. Would have been day 11 or 12, I don't recall. Maybe 13 or 14 because we had stayed so long at Nitro. Regardless, this campsite was on River Right, and on the left was a 300-meter canyon. Just amazing. So you're camped within, 15 feet of this thing, and it's amazing. And the river's in the middle, right? And a great little eddy pool, so we were catching grayling and stuff. And at that point, we had that night too, because it was just such a scenic spot. We had a group bonding activity. We played charades and had some games and stuff, and it was really fun. I just every day that we kept going, the group dynamic was getting better, and we were staying up more, talking more at the fire and stuff. And because it doesn't get dark until 1 a.m., I guess, we've had times where it's it's midnight, I guess we better go to bed. So that's the other thing is because it was the summertime, it never really, really got dark. I think on the last night we were there, or second last night, I actually woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and then I saw what would be considered a sunset and got some great photos because it's so beautiful. But the rest of the time it's just sunny. So I wore a sleep mask because I couldn't actually sleep in the tent with all the light, and I found that really helped me sleeping. So those are some of the things I learned up there. But through the canyon was a really nice spot. And then after the canyon, it was like I said, wider and flatter. So it started getting flat again as we were approaching the Peel River system, which is where the Hart River actually ends. And it was really interesting because when the last couple of days we were on our trip, we were off of the Hart River and on the Peel, where they come and pick you up. And when we got to the confluence of the Peel, I didn't even know that was the confluence. Paul told us because of he had his GPS, and he says, we're getting on the Peel. I'm like, doesn't make any sense because I thought it was going to be as dramatic as it was with the Hart River coming out of Elliott Creek. But, he was able to point it out, so we could see it once, and we actually camped right at the confluence. There was another good campsite, and that's where I got to see that sunset. And throughout it all, like I said, we had some really good group bonding. We had some great fishing. One of the spots right before the Peel River, which was really really cool, was again this is after the canyon. We made our way through, and there were like these big free pyramid-shaped mountains, like almost perfect pyramid-shaped mountains that were in the distance. And as we got closer, we noticed that there were some mountain goats climbing up, which is really cool. So we had stopped to watch the mountain goats, which ended up being a great campsite anyway. So we stayed on that spot, and there's also some good fishing there. So we caught, I think, eight or nine grayling between the three of us that were fishing, which is really cool, and we were able to eat some. And yeah, the pyramid-shaped mountains were just another way that we were surprised because it looked different from everything else. Like every day there was something new to explore and see, I guess, which is really cool. And that was one of my favorite campsites too. It was actually a really small site, relatively speaking, but it was another like little bit of a canyon wall, and like I said, the mountains in the distance. And it was also getting warmer, so we finally, on day 8 and throughout the rest of the trip, it was more sunny, more frequently, and it didn't rain. Like it rained the first 7 days of the trip, not continually, but like I said, almost on clockwork at certain times of the day. It always seemed to find us when we were setting up camp. So it was nice to see the sun and have it come out and be a little warmer. And then when we got to the Peel River, we approached like the last couple of days were spent getting through those big Class 4 rapids. And that was a really cool experience. That was really fun. And by that time, we had a lot more confidence in the whitewater. So, yeah, it was bittersweet when we were at the last campsite and the plane came to pick us up. And I think the last thing I could say about the trip is the plane ride home was spectacular too, because then you fly through all the different mountain ranges and stuff as well, and you actually fly over the Hart River, so you can kind of see, oh, we were there. And what was cool is, for about 30 seconds, you could see the river in the plane, and you watch the river go like as far as you can see, and you're like, wow, we paddled that. We paddled all of that, which is amazing. And then the different mountains and stuff, we saw the same Mordor-looking mountain, but from the aerial view. Really cool perspective. And we made it back to Mayo and just back to Whitehorse. And we spent one extra day in Whitehorse, which I was really grateful for, to just recover and take a shower and reminisce and stuff. And yeah, that was it. But like overall, it felt like we were moving fast, but we were moving slow. So I don't know how else to describe it. And just like I said, I couldn't even do a lot of writing. It was just my senses were taking it in.
Yeah.
What I find with shooting stuff on a camera and things, it takes away from your visual of actually seeing it with your own eyes. So I can imagine that you'd want to just take it all in with your eyes.
Yeah. I know that, like, I don't have, excuse me, I haven't done anything to that level, but just doing things like, Killarney, Algonquin, whatever, I'm so much more inclined to whip out the camera and take stills as opposed to set up video shots and stuff like that, just because I'm looking around, so Thomas will turn around, our eldest will turn around and be like, close your mouth, Dad, because you're just like,
Catching flies.
sucking in all that beauty. Man, I can totally see why that would be a bucket list trip. That's pretty wild. How do you set up the plane? Like, obviously, it'd be easy enough to book it to go in, but do you have I assume you have a specific date so you have to be there at a certain time?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We were also fortunate in the sense that with the Garmin, we were able to communicate with I guess the booker of the flight to just confirm when we're going to be there and stuff. But yes, we did in advance set up basically the date and time. And we actually it was interesting because maybe a week before our actual anticipated pull-out date, they were messaging us because they had our Garmin stuff, and they're like, oh, like our beaver is in for repair or whatever, we might have to like shuttle you out with because you can actually, at the takeout on the Peel, you can get a land shuttle. It takes a lot longer, but apparently they might have done that. So we were fortunate in that, I guess, for whatever reason, they were able to finish the maintenance just in the nick of time and be able to fly us safely back. But we did have a bit of communication through the Garmin. But essentially, if you didn't have that, you just be there and
Yeah,
and hope
Saturday
that
at 2
they
p.m. or
arrive.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. That's it. So they set a time now. Um, it's common that the plane will be delayed sometimes, so we actually had to wait an additional hour just at the campsite, which is fine. We knew they were coming, but I suppose if you didn't have that communication, you might be a little worried. So, but yeah, you set the day and time and essentially do your best to show up. And if you don't show up, they think they'll do a reconnaissance or something if it's like an extra day. But usually you'd have some kind of communication with you, like a Garmin or something. We made you all three of us had it. So
Nice. And I just backing up a little bit it was Kathy that lost her food, right? Out of the barrel?
correct. Yes.
How I'm making assumptions. You guys packed extra food for that exact
Yeah,
scenario?
we all shared exactly. We all brought too much, so that really helped, and we were able to share different meals. She was like most of what she lost, I think, were breakfasts and stuff. So not everything was gone. Like half her barrel was still there, which is great. Um, and then we kind of jerry-rigged a lid system because I think we lost her lid. So there was like a canvas bag that one of the gears pieces came in from the boat, like when we had the deconstructed canoe, and we were able to like kind of rig it so it was over top, and when we were strapping stuff in now, we were butting it up against the other barrel so that it was like almost one unit. So she didn't lose everything, but she lost enough that we definitely ended up sharing. And that was nice. That was kind of the vibe with the whole group too. Is I shared my food with people, they shared their food. We didn't plan to do shared meals per se. We thought maybe we'd have a shared breakfast or a shared dinner like once, but everybody was kind of responsible for their own, and we ended up just sharing, and it worked out totally fine. And thankfully, we caught some fish, so that helped a bit too.
Cool. You mentioned mountain goats. Did any other wildlife viewings?
Oh yeah, you're right. Numerous bald and golden eagles, which were really cool to see. So that was really special. And we got to see on the second last day one black bear who was across the river from us. No grizzlies. And a few moose, actually. A few moose. Mostly it looked like a mother and a calf kind of situation. So we didn't really see any big antlers, but there were a few moose as well.
Cool. Yeah. I'm trying to think how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Thomas and I saw a bald eagle in Georgian Bay, just the bottom of the French. And I was like, holy mackerel, that's a huge bird, man. That's crazy. That was very cool.
You're absolutely right.
So here's just one that, because when I was going through your stuff, you mentioned nesting. Whose idea was that? Was that somebody else has done that before, and that's how you guys knew how to do that, or the outfitter, or because I thought that was pretty cool way to dodge having to need 3 canoes and only having space for 2.
Yeah, thanks. I believe that is the outfitter's concept. I know they've done it before on multiple trips. So when we arrived in Whitehorse, we were there a couple days early to like just secure our provisions and stuff, and we spent the day right ahead of the trip before our flight at the outfitters doing the deconstruction and like fitting spray skirts and stuff. And so they were kind of coaching us through how to do the process, which worked out well for us. And having that experience, being able to like do it ahead of time and then put it back together without having to try and attempt it the first time when we were actually in the wilderness was helpful. So yeah, that was the outfitter's concept and seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. That way you can get 6 people out on a trip instead of only 4.
Yeah.
That's it for me. You're a great storyteller, man. You make
Thank you.
doing a
I
podcast
appreciate
really
the
easy.
opportunity to tell. It also is just, it's nice to kind of reminisce over this a bit more. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. All right. The young lady will do our outro and we'll wrap her up.
That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to our special guest, Deren from Ride, Paddle, Repeat. Please do check him out on Instagram and YouTube. And check out us out on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And reach out to us if you want to anytime. We are at hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.